Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 Podcast. Joining us today, it is Austin Keeney making his return trip to the show. He is from Wide Right and Natty Light. Austin, appreciate you giving us some time here on this Thursday morning.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so it's been a tumultuous, tumultuous is the wrong word. It's been an up and down year for Iowa State, right? And this has been a season where the fan expectations and maybe the coach expectations have been a little different. And so I think let's just start this off. I'm going to play this video from Matt Campbell's press conference. And it seems to have everybody in the Big 12 media / Iowa State media / Iowa State fan base buzzing. So let's take a look at this.
How do you as a coach view goals? Because at the beginning of the season, your players, the goal was Big 12 championship.
Oh, not me. That was never my goal.
Okay.
My goal has always been one thing, and that's to become the best version of ourselves we can become. So you've never heard me say that word once. You've only heard me talk about becoming the best version of yourself you can be. And really my challenge for this year's team was to become the greatest together team in the history of Iowa State football. And so far, all of our goals are still intact from a Coach Campbell standpoint. Now, could our players have other goals and aspirations? Sure. Do I want them to have great goals and aspirations? Sure. But that's not Coach Campbell's goal. That was never said by me.
All right, so what were your thoughts when you saw that video?
I just love how that's the piece of audio that we clipped, and now we've got Brady Quinn on CBS talking about, oh, I can't believe he doesn't want to win his conference.
Right.
Give me a break. So when I first heard that, I brushed it off. It's like, okay, it's Matt Campbell's version of coach speak. I've heard him say, process, and this is what he's all about 100 times. But I guess I wasn't bothered by it at all because I know Matt Campbell wants to win his conference.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the expectation of your team to be the best version of themselves every single time they're on the field, of course you would expect a conference championship and beyond to come out of that. But I'm not surprised that Matt Campbell would never publicly say, hey, we want to win the Big 12. We want to make the college football playoff, et cetera, because it's really, really hard. You could be a really, really good football team and not win your conference. And it doesn't make me feel any better about being 6-4, but all the advanced statistics and analytics will say Iowa State's a top 15 team in the country this year. We're having a season that hasn't met fan expectations, and it's really funny to hear Iowa State fans being mad about, I can't believe we're going to go 7-5 or 8-4. It's like, well, put yourself there half a decade ago and hear yourself say that. So important to put things in perspective. Iowa State hasn't lived up to, I think, what fans expected of them this year. We're not in the building. We're not on the practice field with them every day. They could be really happy with how the team has performed this year. It just hasn't always showed up on the field. And I think that's probably the message that Matt Campbell's trying to get across. He's never been a guy that will publicly say, hey, we have to win conference championships, whatever. But I know that he wants to. I know that the players want to. I think everybody just lumps that on them because we made the conference championship game last year and we didn't make it this year.
Yeah, I would say a couple things. Anybody who doesn't think Matt Campbell wants to win a conference championship, just look at him on the sideline. The guy's a lunatic sometimes.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, an absolute lunatic sometimes. I would say that I know this is me kind of really nitpicking here. I don't really appreciate how quick he was to be that was never my goal. Because, this team was preseason ranked top 10. I know he never said that, but we knew this group was in the Big 12 championship last year, right? They lost the game. I think him being so quick to say that was never the goal. We want to be the best together team. Well, they could potentially do that in the back end, but that, they missed that window. That being the best, whatever it means, the best together Iowa State team. I think that window to me, unless they go on some barnstorming last couple games that ends in a bowl game where they smash somebody, to me, that's out the window. So I don't know. To me, it didn't feel like a a recognition of the realities. Now, it's his job to get the team ready to play moving forward. I get that. To me, I would just say, like, I didn't appreciate how quick he was to be like, that was never our goal. I think there should be some acknowledgement that, hey, that goal might be by the wayside, but there's still a lot to play for in the rest of the season.
Exactly. And I'll be honest, it did surprise me how short Matt Campbell was with, that question, and how he just kind of completely brushed it off and was like doing sort of the Belichick, Greg Popovich thing where he's just being really surly with the media and saying, come on, give me a break with that question. But I also wouldn't want him to sit up there and say, hey, we didn't meet our expectations before the season is over.
That makes sense. Yeah. But I think, the acknowledgement of, hey, one goal is gone, but there's still plenty to play for. And obviously they play Oklahoma this week, right? I mean, this is an excellent chance to demonstrate. Look, they're not going to get their shot at Oklahoma in the championship game like I thought at the beginning of the season. I'm sure you probably thought that would be the case, or get a shot at least at somebody in the Big 12 title game. But they're going to get their shot. I mean, they have a chance to beat both teams that might be in the Big 12 championship game, right?
We could essentially knock Oklahoma out of the championship game this weekend.
That's right. Yeah, they could not even beat both teams ever. Actually, I mean, like, they have a chance to beat the 5-6 time defending champion of the conference and a team that might win the conference at Oklahoma State. Let's just kind of talk about like the results of this year, right? They're so odd. They've had some really odd games. Mm-hmm. The Iowa game, and we know what Iowa is at this point, like, you cannot beat yourself, or else the score line's going to look as ugly as it did. I mean, they let Iowa win that football game. There is no credit to Iowa for going out there and winning it, but I mean, that game was lost by Iowa State more than I thought it was won by Iowa. The West Virginia game is a really just weird game, right? Baylor, it was the special teams that cost them that game. Texas Tech, it's obviously a 62-yard field goal, but also the defense kind of letting them down in these weird road spots where they went to Morgantown and they went to Tech, and that's where it kind of let them down. It's just kind of been a group that we thought was more primed to finish games off, not finishing games off. Is that your read on it?
Well, we haven't put ourselves in a position to win games. So I don't know if we'd feel any better if we just came out and got our butts kicked and never made the comeback in any of those games. I mean, I guess it wouldn't make me feel better, but it'd be like, oh, it just wasn't our day. We have kind of this uncanny ability to climb back into every game, except for Iowa. Josh, are you a proponent of Murphy's Law? Where just everything that can't go wrong will go wrong? That's exactly what happened against Iowa. So I think back to Baylor, we scored on basically the last play of the game and had a 2-point conversion and try and send it to overtime. West Virginia was a whole other mess, officiating, whatever. Brees Hall didn't fumble. I want that on the record.
That was one of the weirder calls of the year, isn't it? I mean, Now, I will say it could work both ways, right? You go to the Oklahoma State game again, they won, and say, hey, look, was he over the line? But I said, this was an egregious missed one. That was egregious.
Yeah, the line I've gone on is the officials aren't the reason that Iowa State lost, but they did affect the outcome of the game. And correct. Texas Tech, another one, we were down like 31-7 and came back and tied the game, and we're all thinking we're going to overtime. So we do have this ability where you can see it. We are awesome in the second halves of these road games, but we're just kind of going out and getting beat up in the first half. So I don't know if there's something to playing on the road in front of crowds where we didn't have to do that last year. I think that might be some element of why we get off the slow starts. Another thing is like John Heacock's defense, as great as it has been, and I do think this is a great defensive team, his defense isn't unique anymore. We have to kind of come to terms with that. And what I mean by that is it worked so well in like 2017, 2018 that college coaches and NFL coaches came over and said, we want to copy this. So now when you see Iowa State late in the year, you're seeing a defense that you've seen a couple other times because it works. And everyone has their first punch. They can come out and script something that's going to get points on the board. And we're just a little bit slow to react to it and adjust to it. So we're falling way behind. We haven't gotten the consistent push up front that we want from the offensive line either. So like Brees Hall has this ability to take a 5-yard play and turn it into a 50-yard play. And it looks great on the stat sheet. And you'll see like, oh, he had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's like, well, if you watch the game throughout the game, he's not consistently getting 4 or 5 yards every time he's touching the ball. He's getting stopped behind the line of scrimmage, and then he's busting off a 20-yard run. So just that consistency up front hasn't been there. And then the defense just is a little bit slower to react. We're always great in the second half of the game. The first half of the game, you're able to script out your first few plays, and you can get something on the board against us.
Yeah, I would say, for the losses in Big 12 play, like to me, in the Baylor game, it was the handful of drives that went inside the 20 and inside Baylor's 25 and didn't get touchdowns, right? Like that to me is what decided the game. They got torched by Jared Dagey in some moments against West Virginia, which was uncharacteristic. And then I could maybe excuse Donovan Smith because he's not really good Lord, how good did he look? But it's not a guy that's played a whole lot, right? It's not a guy we expected. And Tony Cumbie kind of threw the whole kitchen sink with the Donovan Smith experience at Iowa State. And look, I'm sure teams are going to make some adjustments. I'm sure Oklahoma State's going to watch that film very intently from what Iowa State did last week. And Jim Knowles probably learned from those mistakes. But I will say, I do think there is the part that bothers me, and would bother me if I was an Iowa State fan, is that while these games are kind of similar in their closeness and they all involve kind of an Iowa State comeback, right? There has been some variety to how they have lost, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, it always is something different. Baylor, you look at the special teams. We gave up a kick return touchdown.
And the punt return that set them up the next time around, too.
Essentially gave up 10 points on special teams. And then we made Andrew Mevis the punter, and the special teams has been a lot better since then. But then you go to West Virginia. That was just, like you said, that was just a weird game. Where we didn't really adjust in the second half defensively and get those stops that we're used to. Texas Tech, we just kind of, we took a knockout punch in the first half and just fell too far behind where we couldn't make it all up. I do think you got to give Tech a lot of credit, though. Good for that coach to get him to a bowl eligibility. And that quarterback, your first start, who could have imagined it going any better? That's like the Caleb Williams times whatever, because he's, I don't know, they won the game. I guess OU beat Texas too the first time he played, but yeah. What can you do? And football, it's so hard to win at football. I think sometimes you're just going to go into a game and someone's going to have your number. That might have just been the case with Texas Tech. We beat them up for 5 years in a row. I'm sure they internalized some of what went wrong, and they just came out and played a really good game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And as we look forward, there's still, like we talked about, there is still much to play for them the rest of the season. And look, they're going to Norman this week, where you think, okay, maybe at Iowa State at 6-4, what's it going to look like? They're only 3.5-point favorites. And I think that shows you that Vegas is kind of leaning on those, a lot of those advanced analytics, right? A lot of those numbers that tell us Iowa State is a really good football team still. And I just want to know, what are your expectations this week? Are you expecting an angry Lincoln Riley? Obviously, there's a whole lot of new. I would say out of all teams in the Big 12, these two teams have the most kind of negative energy around them right now due to just where they are, what the kind of losses they're coming off of, whether it be Matt Campbell's comment that, whether it should or not, but it's getting some negative attention. Obviously, Lincoln Riley's name is being floated for the LSU job, and they're coming off a really bad loss off a bye week. There's a weird energy about this game. I would say it's a nervous energy for both teams.
I'd almost say that's not really a nervous energy for Iowa State. After we lost to West Virginia, we came home and kicked the crap out of Texas. So I think we will come out and play well off of a loss. I have no idea what to expect from Oklahoma. Their offense has been so unpredictable from game to game. You think Caleb Williams is going to come in, and there were people trying to give him the Heisman Trophy after one half against Texas. And he comes out 4 weeks later and is getting benched against Baylor because he can't make plays. So who knows? I kind of like that they have this quarterback turmoil, and they're going to start Williams, but who knows what happens if they struggle early on. It'll be a really interesting game. Oklahoma still has everything to play for in terms of hey, we can still win the conference. And who knows if we look great, maybe the playoff committee will start giving us some consideration. But I hate doing prediction radio. I'm not going to come out and say like, hey, Iowa State's going to win the game or anything.
Right,
But
yeah.
I would be surprised if Iowa State comes out and just like lays down and gets run over. So
yeah, I'd be shocked too if that happened.
yeah, I think Oklahoma is going to come out and play angry. I think Iowa State kind of knows what they are at this point. I'm not sure if they're going to come out and be like angry, nervous energy. Hey, we're going to come out and, throw some knockout blows. I think we're going to do what we do. And, it'll probably look slow. We'll give up some drives and then we'll, just try and be in the game in the second half. That's, it's kind of the Matt Campbell way. You mentioned that 3.5. Hey, if you look at all of our road losses, maybe that 3.5 looks pretty good because, we could be down 42-0 at halftime and we'll probably come back and make it close.
Right. I mean, it's not like Oklahoma's smoked everybody they've played at home this year, right? They've had, relatively close games against TCU and then a very close game against West Virginia, obviously. So, and game against Tulane was not a blowout. So yeah. I think with the nervous part of it, it's because for Iowa State, you might say, all right, 6-4, like you kind of playing with house money at this point, right? I mean,
exactly.
That's true. But I do still think that this game, because of what it means, this was supposed to be kind of our Big 12 championship game, and there's still a lot in line. Like, I think there's a lot to prove for Iowa State. I think there is a statement that could be made. They could still get themselves, to 8-4. It's still possible. A 9-win season is still also possible as well. So maybe not nervous, but like I don't. As far as like house money goes, there is still some stakes for Iowa State. I feel like that. It's not, this isn't some team. It's like, hey, we're 3-5,
yeah,
we don't think we're going to a bowl game, or, whatever it is, we don't think we're going to a bowl game. Let's just throw the kitchen sink at them. I don't know if it's like that, but that's just me.
No, I agree. I mean, even like when you say it out loud, 8-4 versus 7-5, it really seems different, even if it's just one.
Oh, yes.
So it's still really important for Iowa State. And even if you want to look at like the big picture, Oklahoma's going to leave the conference and somebody's going to have to ascend to be, the new big kid on the block. And Iowa State has come as close to being a true rival to Oklahoma as anybody in the last 4 or 5 years. So you still need to prove that, hey, we can compete with anybody, especially Oklahoma, who's been the kingpin of the Big 12 and is on their way out. I'm not scared about going to Norman at all. We've won a game down there. The last time we were down there, we were a 2-point conversion away from winning the game. So there's no reason why we can't play with them. But yeah, I do agree. This is very important for Iowa State. We're getting like the primetime treatment from Fox too. I can't really remember the last time we've had a network's A crew calling a game. The expectation is going to be this one gets a big audience because it's the big noon game at 11 o'clock. People still want to see what Oklahoma has and if they have anything left in the tank. So yeah, it's really important for Iowa State to come out and look good and play well. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I just think about, what you mentioned, it makes me excited for the future of the Big 12, because you think about all of there are several schools that I think want to make that claim, right? Cincinnati, if they can find some way to retain Luke Fickell, even if they don't, they can make the right hire. Like that's a program that's at top of its game right now. Iowa State, obviously Matt Campbell is near the top of its game still in terms of, what the program has been. Oklahoma State, this is probably the best Mike Gundy team I can remember in terms of like all of it. I know the offense isn't that good, but man, I don't think he's ever had a group that's as good as that defense is. TCU thinks that they should be towards the top of the conference. I don't disagree just because where it's located, right? If Dave Aranda stays in Baylor, I think the rest of the Big 12 should be horrified of what that might look like, because boy, he is, out of all the coaches I've seen this year, I'm not sure how you feel about this, Dave Aranda has impressed me the most. So I think it kind of excites me for the future of this conference.
Oh, the new Big 12 is going to be awesome. All we need to do is make sure we get the respect that I think the new Big 12 will deserve. I'm kind of personally branding it as the new Big 12 instead of just calling it Big 12. I don't know. What has Texas done to deserve any sort of acclaim? So
they don't need it. We don't need Texas. They're fine. We can get out.
Them leaving means absolutely nothing. We could let them go this offseason. We'll keep Oklahoma for a little bit longer because we need the national media to pay attention to us for a little bit longer until somebody ascends. But there's the new Big 12 is going to be, I think, easily the third best football conference out there behind the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah, I don't know why people think the Pac-12 all of a sudden, like the Pac-12 is not going to be better than the new Big 12 in football. It's just not. I mean, and here's the thing: the ACC, if Clemson can kind of get it back together, sure, you can say the Big 12 is not going to have a Clemson type team at this point in time. You can just you can say that, but man, FSU since Jimbo left, and even at the end of Jimbo's run, they have not been very good. Virginia Tech is nowhere near what it was. Miami is nowhere near where it was. You're going to have Pitt playing most likely Wake Forest in the championship game. I think that's fun and fascinating, but when these people are talking about the new Big 12, like it's going to be like the AAC essentially, where is that coming from? Because here's the problem too. I'm sure you saw this. I'm going to get in this a little bit. Did you see the Doak Walker list came out yesterday?
With all those Big 12 players on it. Yeah, Brees and Bijan Robinson. And
four Big 12 running backs. Brees, Bijan, Abram Smith, and Deuce Vaughn. And Jalen Warren, I know he has not been as on fire as he was in the season, but still, I mean, if he's not on the list, he's right off of the list. That'd be half the running backs. This is not the shootout conference. I know Iowa State's played in a couple shootouts this year, but like on the whole, I'm not sure if people watched Baylor and Oklahoma last week. That wasn't 55-50. You know what I mean? That's not what that game was. So I like the kind of football that this conference is playing. I like the way it's trending. My favorite Big 12 game all year, Austin, I love the Oklahoma State-Iowa State game. It was mistake-free. It was about running the football. A couple big plays were hit, and both those defenses played well. I think, to me, that's the future of the Big 12 conference, and that's good football. That's not some aired-out Patrick Mahomes stuff that everybody thinks it is.
We'll give a little plug for the atmosphere, too, because I was in the stands for that game at Jack Trice, and that was electric. The stands were moving when they, pull out the sticks to measure that fourth down play. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The new Big 12 is going to be really exciting football, and this battle for conference supremacy is going to be fascinating because there's going to be a berth in the college football playoff at stake. So
I hope
somebody's got to come up and take it. The playoff is going to expand eventually. And I like you said, the ACC, the Pac-12, they're not going to be better than the Big 12. Not a chance.
Right. I mean, the Pac-12 doesn't even have three teams that are like Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Oklahoma right now. They don't.
Yeah.
Iowa State could be the second best team in the Big 12 in the Pac-12 this year.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get real like conspiracy corner over here, I'm not convinced that the Pac-12 is staying together still. And I've thought for a long time that Clemson's going to end up in the SEC at some point too.
Yeah, it could happen. A couple things before we get you out of here. New basketball coach, TJ Otzelberger. I think it's Otzelberger, right? That's how it's pronounced. Yeah. I've heard Otzel. I believe it's Otzel. Off to a really good start. Worked on Big 12 radio yesterday, and they had him on. And he is, you can tell, very process oriented, very serious guy. Understands the challenge ahead of them. Really, composition. 6 new guys come in, obviously, from, I believe, 6 new transfers, a couple new freshmen, 3 guys stay. He's got the challenge that most coaches have, right? But he's got the challenge of a team that was in last place that lost, its best scorer in Jalen Coleman-Lands. He's very aware of a challenge, and I can tell he's not getting too high after their first, was it 3-0? They're 3-0, 4-0?
3-0.
Yeah.
We won 2 games last year, and we've won 3 this year.
Right. He's not getting too high, and he's very level-headed. Nope. So I like your new coach. How are you feeling about the new head man for the basketball program?
Loving him. And to put it in perspective, it's not like we're going to go out and make the NCAA tournament this year, but Otz is a culture guy, I think, through and through. And I kind of believe that more and more as we led up to the season. This Iowa State team, they're fun. We're a basketball school again. How about that? No. When you think about it, like the transfers we brought in, Isaiah Brockington from Penn State, he was a player there. Gabe Kalsher from Minnesota, he was a player there. Jazz Kuntz from Washington State, he was a player there. Those are Power 5, Power 6, whatever you want to call it in basketball. Those are guys who could play at a high level. So there's talent on the roster. And the best thing about Otz is he's just got them playing hard. We know that we're not going to be a cohesive offense because we're brand new. We're going to get better throughout the year at scoring the ball. But if we play with effort right now, like we are, it's going to, we're going to be in games that we really shouldn't. Like I can envision Kansas coming to Hilton and being in a game in the second half that they might eventually pull ahead and win. But I think we're laying the foundation this year. That's what I'm really excited about. And I'll throw a little plug for the women's basketball team too. They're good. Very good.
Yeah, they've been pretty good for the last, I think, for a little while. And this conference, just for basketball, both men's and women's, is tremendous. I mean, it's such a fun basketball conference. And I want to shout out Isaiah Brockington. I thought Otzelberger made a great point about, like, this is a guy who's a third or fourth option, and he said he's becoming a number one option. He said, but he's earned it. This is a guy that, like, has put in the work to earn that. And I like the idea of rewarding that, making you a number one scoring option because you're good enough and you've earned that position.
12 rebounds against Oregon State as like a 6'4" kind of combo guard.
That's
forward.
working. That's working. That's what that is right there. That's working.
That's effort. And that's how you endear yourself to a fan base, is you're a guard who rebounds. Oh, man, that's so much fun.
And very exciting. My Missouri Tigers, I think, are actually going to Hilton to play Iowa State in
in January
in SEC Big 12 Challenge. Yes, so that is very exciting. All right, Austin, what are you working on right now? Plug whatever you'd like before I get you out of here.
Yeah, my podcast is the Lightcast on the Wide Right Natty Light Network. We're diving into basketball season, doing a little football wrap up here. This week's episode, we talked a lot about Thanksgiving food because it's timely. So I really recommend listening to that if you want some hot takes about what the best sides are and what the best desserts are for Thanksgiving. But yeah, like I said, Wide Right Natty Light. You can find we got all kinds of stuff going on there.
Austin, Keeney, we appreciate your time.
Thanks, Josh.